Today we've got another mail day video. This is a series where we open up new tools and I give you guys my first impressions of the tools. You can see my cat give us the luxury of starting the unboxing for us. But anyways, let's get started. So let's start out with this guy here and see what this is. Ooh, I'm really hyped for this. So this is essentially just a little rotating plate that has these little containers that we can put liquids into. And my thought process for these is to put some like Flux and UV mask and UV resin in some of these. So I actually bought these little watch oilers a little while ago, and I've been really liking these things for applying controlled small amounts of liquid, whether it be Flux or UV mask, especially when I'm doing small trace repair jobs. These are really great for that purpose, and I'll show you why. So this is a 0.2 millimeter watch oiler, and you can see just how tiny that little probe is at the end there. And it's actually shaped in a way, you can't really see it with this tiny one as well. Let me show you a larger one. It's just this little fin. And this shape is really great at applying like controlled amounts of liquid to the board. So normally I would apply a little bit of mask or resin to this little orange mat that I can move around on my bench. And then I'll dip these little watch oilers into this pool of, whatever liquid I'm using. And let me just show you the difference between using these little watch oilers and using like some tweezers to apply some mask. So first of all, you can see if I dip the end of my tweezers into the mask, I get quite a bit of mask on my tweezers. But if I do the exact same thing with this little watch oiler, you can see I get a really controlled amount. And not only that, but when I go to apply the mask to the board, you can see just how much less comes off of this little watch oiler. It's a lot more easy to control how much goes onto the board. Not to mention when I want to go apply this to the board, see how it pulls up further inwards and not close to the tip like it does on this watch oiler. You can see this one is going to be extremely controlled and applying a thin application of mask in a very specific area, whereas this one is just going to kind of like do that. You can obviously make mask work with your tweezers. However, you just have to be a lot more gentle and careful with how much you're putting on your tweezers. So anyways, that's why I got this thing. I didn't actually have any sort of holder for these watch oilers, and I use them quite a bit. So this thing is going to serve that purpose, but I also can use this to store little bits of UV resin or mask in these little containers. To be honest, I don't know if these are going to be airtight enough. I thought these were going to close a bit nicer. At the very least, even if I just wipe the mask off every time I'm done using it, it's a little bit nicer to use than just having a mat floating around. It's a bit more cheap quality than I was expecting from this thing, especially for the price. There's plenty of other ones that are like cheaper, like what, this is 20 bucks. I would totally pay 20 bucks for this thing. So I have a link to this cheaper one in the description as well if you're interested in that. Again, these are designed for watch oils, and then we could just snag one of these watch oilers, and like this is perfect, and it actually gets an even smaller amount on there because of how shallow this bowl is. The other thing this has is these little like foam areas where you can, I guess, wipe off or stab. Oh yeah, you can stab these. That's very cool. So this is just like to allow you to clean the watch oiler in between uses. But yeah, neat little tool, and I'm excited to start using this instead of just having liquids all over my mat like this. By the way, I'll have affiliate links to all of the tools I'm going to be testing in this video if you guys are interested in them and want to support the channel. All right, moving on, we can take a look at what this is. And just based on the size, I'm pretty sure I know what this is. I actually got this because of another member of the YouTube repair community. His name's JFix. He's got a YouTube channel. Go check him out. I'll have a link to his channel in the description. But anyways, I saw him pick this up in one of his videos, and I really wanted a similar thing, so I grabbed this as well. It's just this nice little Mayo repair pad that is heat resistant. And the reason I wanted this kind of thing is because I don't want to burn my mat when using hot air directly on the table. I've seen a lot of people using like a bit of spare tile or something for this, but I just wanted a nice little dedicated thing. This should just be super nice to protect my mat and the table underneath when I want to use hot air for an extended period of time flat on the table without having to use a board holder. And let's see how this thing holds up to like 400 degrees Celsius hot air. I'm just going to kind of blast the corner of this thing, and this thing seems to be doing just fine with 400 degrees Celsius hot air here. It is not really changing color at all. It seems to be very heat resistant as far as I can tell. So this is probably extremely hot at this point. Yep, that is very hot. But you can see the mat underneath is protected. And even though this silicone mat is definitely heat resistant, it's only really heat resistant to a certain extent. It's going to start bubbling up, and heat is going to eventually make its way through to the table. So I wanted to get something like this, and I really like the size of this thing, and this is going to be perfect for working on switch motherboards without having to put it in a board holder for the situations where I do want to use hot air and I don't want to deal with that. All right, next, let's see what's in this guy. Okay, so a lot of you guys know how much I love this little Best brush, the little like super soft brush for cleaning Flux. This thing is really great at getting in between like O201 components and caps and things. And I saw that YCS has some of their own brushes, so I wanted to give these a shot and see if they were different in any way or just the same kind of thing. And if they're the same, then great, because I love them. And these do actually seem a little bit different and maybe softer. No, it's like the same exact thing. But just to show you how nice these are, you can see how much flux is in this area and how many little components are in there. And these little super small bristles get in between the cracks really nicely. So I'm just gonna add some flux cleaner to the board here, and we can just start brushing away and soak it up on a Kim wipe. And right away you can see how much that actually cleaned. But if you want to get this even cleaner, you can use a little bit of hot air and warm up the flux. And this does a really, really great job of getting in between those tiny components. And you can see just how clean that got this area just with this nice little brush. So this is a really nice USB-C cable. I really like these little soft silicone USB-C cables, and I wanted to test the transfer speed of these because I don't have enough nice USB-C cables. So believe it or not all USB-C cables are made equally, and some of them actually bottleneck your transfer speeds, especially if you're transferring between like SSDs and things and your computer. And I'm constantly moving large 4K footage around, and stuff like this is not always going to cut it. So you can see under the microscope that both of these actually have all of the USB-C pins. Not all cables have all the pins, so that's the first thing to check. The other thing I want to try is plugging this into an SSD and testing the transfer speed via Windows command prompt, and I'll show you how I end up doing that. So first I have that white cable plugged in, and we're going to test the speed of this drive by typing WinSat disk drive and then the letter of the drive, which in this case is F. And this is essentially just going through and doing a test read and write to the drive and measuring how fast the drive is. All right, so here are the results of the test. You can see we have random and sequential reads and writes, and it's basically maxing out at like 35 to 40 megabytes per second on the reads or writes. And I'll tell you right now that the SSD we have plugged into the computer can go way faster than this. So let's see what happens when we use this cable instead. All right, so I've got another command prompt window open here for the new cable, and let's see what we get now. And look at the difference between the read and write speeds. So we have upwards of 1 gigabyte per second on the sequential read and writes, and then we have for the random one 355 megabytes per second. So this is just like an insane difference for just like a better USB-C cable. So you can see why I went ahead and purchased some of these, because they're actually dirt cheap on AliExpress, and it's a nice cable. It works great. Actually was not expecting it to work that well. So not only that, but you also have power limitations when it comes to, you know, different types of USB-C cables and how much power they can deliver via power delivery over USB-C. By the way, the first two cables we tested are exactly the same length as each other. You can see they're both a 1 meter cable, but I'm really impressed with this orange one. This is a win for me, definitely a win. Okay, next. This seems like it's a whole bunch of things in one package. Let's take this one at a time. Oh, this is a lot smaller than I thought this was going to be. So this is a holder for probably anything. You could use this for anything, but it's specifically designed for soldering iron tips like C245, T12, or other cartridge style tips. And this is nice and heavy. This is from Mechanic, and I actually really like how low profile this is. I thought this was going to be a little bit larger. You can see this did get damaged in shipping, unfortunately, but not something I personally really care too much about. So there it is. It's actually pretty heavy for how small it is, and that's nice because it won't move around on the table. And again, this is just designed to hold cartridge style tips like this. And let's see if it's going to hold these C115 cartridges. Well, yeah, it's not too deep for those. So here's a C245 iron tip. Here are the C210 iron tips, and then here's a C115. So you can see it works great for any of these size tips. But the other reason I wanted this was actually to hold my little cleaning brushes here, and it can maybe even hold my little trace repair probes here. Because I kind of want to just save this thing for screwdrivers along with my multimeter probes. And this thing's a nice little heavy, low profile holder. So happy to finally have something like that. Moving along, we have, ooh, this is cool. So these are actually ceramic tweezers, but they're a little bit different than your normal ceramic tweezers. So these are the ceramic tweezers I have already, and I wanted to see how these worked. Ooh, these are really difficult to press together actually. Wow, these are very, very, very tight and difficult to press in. I wonder if that's what this is for, is to just make it a little bit easier to press. And I can't really say that that is. Oh, but without them, it feels great. I'm just gonna kind of leave these off because it's very difficult to push the tweezers together with these on. I picked these up because I love these ceramic cutters that are like kind of the same format. And I just kind of keep these out on my bench all the time and use them for like tape and thin wire and stuff like that. So I figured I'd pick these up for wick because I don't actually need the ceramic tweezers to be so precise like these are. You can see under the microscope how sharp the blue ceramic tweezers are that I have compared to these guys. And you know, these aren't nearly as precise, but they're not designed to be. So I thought these would be nice to use with wick. That's sort of my plan for how I'm going to use these. I don't know if I'm going to actually end up using them because they are a little bit difficult to push together. Anyways, moving along, we have, okay, this is kind of cool. This is kind of similar to these little probes here or the watch oilers I was talking about before. I just wanted to see if I would use this kind of thing, but it's actually like a glue applicator. I think this is designed for putting together like models and things like that. So it's hard to tell from the pictures how precise this thing is, but we'll see. Oh wow, that's quite nice actually. So you just sort of like unscrew it on one side and screw it in on the other, and you get like a little pin. Wow, that is way more precise than I was expecting it to be, and I'm glad to see that. And it is kind of like spring loaded here. So it's not going to put like a whole lot of pressure on the thing that you're, you know, pressing on. I guess I'll probably end up using this kind of thing for its intended purpose to apply small amounts of like super glue or epoxy or something. When I don't want to dirty up my watch oilers over there, this will come in handy for those situations, and it's a lot more precise than I was expecting it to be. All right, we also have, yeah, these are some C115 tips. I got these to try out with the G-Boon station. These particular ones are from Relife. I haven't tried this brand of cartridge style tips yet. I've heard mixed things about them, but I did want to grab a bent conical tip because I have the other types of tips here. I have the normal conical tip from G-Boon, and we can actually compare these two under the microscope. So there's the one from Relife, and there's the one from G-Boon. And I don't know if this is because I used it, but the G-Boon one looks a little bent, to be honest, but a little bit more precise than the Relife one. Let me plug this Relife one into the G-Boon station and see if it works well. And yeah, it seems to fit into the station well, and it does appear to be heating up correctly. So we'll have to see, you know, over time if these tips hold up. But again, I mostly got these because I wanted the bent conical and then some backups for like the knife tip here. We can compare the two knife tips as well. So on the right here is the G-Boon knife tip, and on the left is the Relife one. And the tips themselves actually look pretty identical to me, maybe slightly thinner on the Relife side, but yeah, otherwise almost identical tinnable area and shape to them. So we can throw these guys in our new little cartridge holder there. Cool. Next I have another one of these. This was from my other mail day video. I just wanted to grab another one because I actually really like this thing, and I needed a few extra of these magnets. I'm using it for my bench power supply leads and stuff, and I had one extra one and I needed another magnet, and this thing was cheap enough to just grab another one of these. And again, this is just an adhesive that goes like on the side of your desk or something. All right, next, let's see what this thing is. Oh yeah, cool. So this is just some universal little stencils for reballing with solder paste, and I'm hoping that these are going to be magnetic so I can use them along with my universal magnetic reballing jig here from Ameo. So let me see if these are magnetic, and they are. Wonderful. Okay, and they're really, really nice and thin actually. So this one is extra thin because it's for the smaller solder ball sizes, and then this one is a bit thicker for the larger ones. And they do both work really great, and it looks like they come with some extra little VGA tools. But it looks like we get everything from 0.3 all the way up to 0.85, which is very cool. And I can pop these into my little stencil holder back here. Speaking of the magnetic stencil, I got this as well, which is another one. And this one is specifically designed for use with DDR5 and DDR6 memory for like the PS5 console and stuff like that. And this will be nice when I have to reball a whole bank of like 6 RAM chips at once. And this magnetic base is actually one of the ones I don't have yet. It has these little positioning pins, and it comes with these that are actually designed to be able to use with solder balls as well as solder paste. You can see this little exit point where you can pour the excess solder balls out. I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's recessed areas for the memory chips. And this just sort of lines up with the two little points there. And then these are magnetic. So very cool, definitely gonna come in handy when I have to reball lots of RAM chips at the same time. All right, next, this is, okay, I have no idea if I'm gonna use these or not, but people have been asking about them on my channel, so I picked some up to try them out. So sometimes when you're reballing with solder paste, especially with the larger solder ball sizes, what happens is sometimes the solder balls form above the stencil. So when you try to pull the stencil up, it's gonna rip pads, or it's just not gonna come off. So these little things are designed to sort of go over the top of the stencil and chip that you're reballing in order to kind of keep the paste in check. And it's it's silly to me to buy this because it seems like it's just a small bit of glass or something. So you can see it's just like this feels stupid now opening this, but it's just a small piece of glass. And we can, I suppose, give this thing a shot. Maybe I can just quickly reball something with paste and show you guys what I mean. So I'm just gonna use this little repair pad now to pull some RAM chips quickly off of this switch donor board. So let's snag these guys off and we can try to reball these. So far, I'm loving this little repair pad thing. The heat itself is not even really getting to the mat at all. And I think that's just due to the fact that it has these little like low profile feet on them. So there's a bit of air between the pad and the mat, but this thing is pretty nice for exactly what I want to use it for. So we can also use these little tweezers now for the wick and see how we like them. All right, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really like these for how hard they are to press, even after taking out the little insert. In order to make them easy to press, you kind of have to have your fingers closer to the tips. And the problem with that while you're wicking, especially with hot air, is that the hot air is close to your fingers and you're gonna burn your hand. That honestly didn't cross my mind because I do like to use hot air with my wick quite a bit. Maybe I'll find another use for these guys. To be honest with you, I don't really have this problem very often because for larger solder ball sizes, I kind of avoid using solder paste and I actually just end up using solder balls with the other types of jigs. So we'll give it a shot here. The one thing I don't quite understand about this tool is that you're covering the paste, so when you heat it with the hot air, it's gonna take a little longer, which I'm not really a big fan of that idea, but nonetheless, let's give this thing a shot. And I thought, even if I don't use it for this, it'll be nice to press down mask while I'm curing it to make it flat when doing trace repair. But anyways, you can use these little lightning shaped tweezers for this to really press it against the stencil. And let's see if I can heat this thing up enough, even with the glass over it, to melt the solder balls. It's interesting, the flux you can see is sort of like trapped as well, which is interesting. Definitely, this is taking longer. I'll tell you right now, this is definitely taking longer to heat the chip enough. Yeah, you can see it flattening out all of those little solder balls there. This is very strange. I don't know how to feel about this. Okay, so those are all melted, and you can see they're all kind of flattened out by the piece of glass. All right, and I guess I can kind of see the point of this, and that does separate. I will say that does separate from the chip way easier than it normally would. But I don't know how I feel about how long I need to have the heat on there. So you can see the solder balls that form are kind of like little flat discs now. And honestly, you probably don't even need to reflow this to put this on the board, and it might actually even be easier to put on the board. Anyways, interesting little tool. Definitely not sure I'm going to use this for reballing, but could be useful for mask again. So we can open the one that my cat started opening for us. I really have no clue what this is. Oh, cool. Okay. Yes. This is exactly what I wanted. So this is the exact same thing as those non-magnetic Mayo spreaders for solder paste, except it's a wide version. And if you guys have seen my recent reballing videos, you'll know I really like the springiness and just the overall thickness of the Mayo spreader. But I wanted to give one a shot that's a bit wider. And this seems like it would be really nice to use for sort of larger chips to spread paste. So excited to have that. We also have here a little transparent bit of film, and this is to block off sort of damaged BGA footprints. And essentially these dots prevent the mask from curing where the BGA pads are. So if you have a bunch of solder mask missing from the BGA footprint, you can just put a pool of UV mask down instead of like meticulously placing it. And then you just sort of line this up and press it over it and then cure. And then you can kind of clean away the excess. But I think I got 2 of these, so one of these other packages should have another one of these in it, and I'll try to find that now. So I think that's gonna be this package here, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, these are something completely different. I'm gonna show you these in a second, but anyways. The other one here is also from Mayo, but it is for NAND chips specifically. So we have some, BGA 153 and all of the different little NAND sizes. So this will be nice if we have like a switch NAND that has damaged BGA pads. We can use this to restore them. But yeah, these guys are pretty weird, and I don't really know how these are designed to be used. So if you look at a picture of these on the listing, it appears as though these are designed to keep chips in place when you're reballing with solder paste. So I suppose we could try these out with the RAM chip from a switch and this little stencil again. So I guess these are like little adhesive things that you put around the corners like this maybe. I feel like you could just use 2 of these instead of 4 and it would kind of serve the same purpose. So I get the idea of these. This is kind of cool. So that even with the magnetic jig, it's kind of going to be nice to easily and more quickly line up the chip. That being said, like you're saving yourself like 3 seconds of lining up the stencil on the chip. But if you don't have the magnetic jig, I can totally see how this would be useful. If you do like to tape your chips to your stencils, this is going to help you line up the chip a lot faster. And it's also going to prevent the chip from sliding around, underneath the stencil. So I do kind of get the point. I get the point. The other thing I'm not sure about is like how these would hold up to cleaning the stencil. Because every time I use these, I have to clean these with like IPA or Flux cleaner. Are they going to stay on here? Are they going to slide around and stuff? Okay. They appear to stay put, at least after one clean. And I am not being gentle with this. I'm using plenty of IPA and scrubbing, plenty hard. And they're not coming off, so I don't know, kind of cool. I changed my mind about these. If you don't have a magnetic jig, these might be interesting to pick up for you. Of course, this is not going to work for the fuel gauge IC unless you just put one on there on one corner. I guess that could still help. And then lastly, we have another one of these binders for resistors or caps. These are just assorted capacitors. These particular ones are 0603 caps, just a bunch of different values. And I think we have 25 of each in this particular binder. I just pick up one extra size of these for resistors or caps every time I check out on Ali because it's nice to have a bunch of random values of components and not having to go look for them on boards. So yeah, that's everything I got today. I would say the winners for me are going to have to be, even though this watch oiler stand is not quite the quality I was looking for, it's definitely really cool and I'm excited to start using this with these oilers for trace repair. Otherwise, honestly, the other winner for me is going to be this repair pad thing. This is going to be really nice to just be able to freely use my hot air directly on my bench without having to worry about damaging my mat or my table. An honorable mention for this USB-C cable. But otherwise, I appreciate you guys for watching and I will see you in the next video. Peace.